Okay, Tony Award fans, we don't know much about what's going to happen this year with the competition, but we do know that there are nominations coming out. We're not quite sure how many there will be per category. We're not even sure what's really eligible, and we really don't even know when the date's going to be. But that's never stopped us fearless prognosticators before. I'm Tom O'Neill from Gold Derby. I want you to meet Sam Eckmann, our chief Broadway writer, Brian Lipton from Cititour and many other freelance outlets, and the great Michael Musto from Queerty. Sam, to you, you wrote what I think we all praise as the definitive state of the race of what little or much we know. So take it away. What the hell do we know?
Well, it's going to be a bizarre year. It's taken us a long time to get to this point with the nominations finally having a date for that. But what we know is that the season is basically cut in half due to the pandemic. February 19th is the new eligibility cutoff date. So that sadly cuts out West Side Story and Girl from the North Country, which opened, just after that. Not enough nominators and voters got in to see those. So that leaves us with 18 shows. Only 4 of them are musicals. There's no musical revival, so that category is gone this year. And the rest are plays. And, it's going to be what we do know about the category length, how many contenders are in each category, is that they're kind of using for this year and this year only, they're going to use the rules they have for the top 4 show categories will apply to all categories when deciding how many nominees there are. So for instance, Best Musical only has 4 contenders. That means it's a 3 nominee category. Similarly, for lead actress in a musical, there's only 4 women eligible for that. So best show rules now apply to those acting categories, and there will only be 3 eligible women. So a lot of the categories will be shrunken down, but especially for the musicals, since there's only 4 of them competing. But the plays are going to be really competitive because, as we know, Broadway always front loads the season in the fall with lots of plays. So, I think it's going to be a great year for Moulin Rouge and maybe Jagged Little Pill and Tina Turner to dominate the musical categories, and the plays will be have a lot of things up in the air.
Michael, we normally appreciate you for all of your many expressions of outrage. Where are you on the outrage-o-meter in terms of how this is being handled?
Well, I think they waited a bit too long. The moment is kind of gone. We're all trying to remember what show was that again? It was a long time ago. It's also a little tragic that, as I just mentioned backstage, that this is the first time I've ever gotten a notice saying, here are the nominees. They're going to be announced next Thursday, without saying the winners will be announced on. And I actually think, Tom, that what they're waiting for is maybe to try to get a TV station to pick it up. Let's face it, the Emmys were on TV, the VMAs were on TV, and it is possible. It's just not going to be as exciting because none of these shows are available now. Nobody can see them. One of the other tragedies is a show called Six, which is kind of a modern pop diva retelling of the wives of Henry VIII, was opening on the night of the lockdown. They never got to have their opening night party. They never got to even get reviewed, and they're not eligible. Company, the revival with Patti LuPone, Katrina Lenk, not eligible. As Sam mentioned, the Bob Dylan musical, Girl from the North Country, West Side Story, not eligible. They didn't invite enough Tony nominees or nominators to make the cut. Next year, we'll have a clean start over if they really do start the season on June 1st, as they're saying, and that'll be the next batch of Tony eligibility.
Okay, Brian, pipe in here. What do you think?
Well, there are a couple things I want to point out that make this year particularly interesting. There's always been sort of a conventional wisdom that closed shows don't win, or people in closed shows don't win because it doesn't boost business. Obviously, everything is a closed show. We have no idea if any of these shows will even reopen when and if Broadway reopens. So that sort of makes it a very different kind of slate. As Michael said, and I agree, I think we waited so long that it's hard to remember everything we saw, but that's out of the way. I think the other thing that makes us predicting nominations and even awards this year a little trickier is that the usual other groups that predict, Outer Critics and Drama Desk and Drama Critic Circle, all of which I am a member of, leaned completely heavily to off-Broadway this year. Those groups basically ignored Broadway. So we can't really even look and say, well, they gave the award to blah, 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 which we often do. So we're working on a really blank slate here and trying to figure out both our nominations and our eventual winners. And that's different than any other year that I can remember doing this. And that's an awfully long time.
Okay, so now it's time for any one of you gutsy pundits to make a proclamation. Who's out front? Do we have formidable front runners to win the race? Yes. And what are they?
I think we do. Well, all right. Can I start?
Yeah.
I think the one sure thing, even though there were, as Sam pointed out, the musical categories are very short, probably 3 in each. But I think the surest bet for this year is Adrienne Warren as Tina in the Tina Turner musical. Mm-hmm. No disrespect to both Elizabeth Stanley, brilliant in Jagged Little Pill, and Karen Olivo, who was charismatic in Moulin Rouge. But I think this was absolutely not only the performance of the year, maybe even a performance of the decade. And I think that is the strongest front runner that we have in any race this year. Comments?
Yeah. She would have won in even a full season, I think. It's just one of the biggest star turns you could hope to see. Elizabeth Stanley's great, and I'm glad she's finally going to get a nomination because she's been working for a long time without one. But Adrienne Warren is so far out front in this.
So last year Cher won, and this year Tina Turner's going to win.
We're working our way through the divas, Michael.
Next year, Cyndi Lauper. Hopefully not Michael Jackson.
Whoa.
Well, he's coming.
And then
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Adrienne.
We really need to talk about has only 2 possible nominees: Aaron Tveit in Moulin Rouge and Chris McCarroll in The Lightning Thief, which gives the Tony Committee 3 options. They can eliminate the category entirely, they can award it to Aaron outright, or they can nominate both people and let the voters decide. And I'm really curious what Sam and Michael, you think they're going to do.
I think eliminating the category would be a mistake, and it's unfair to Aaron, who's really fantastic. Mm-hmm. Isaac Powell obviously would have been a great contender as well for West Side Story, but that show wasn't eligible. Whether they get rid of the category, just give it to Aaron, or have the category and give it to Aaron, just give it to Aaron.
I think they're going to keep it because, especially with the news like that the shutdown is extending, we all know that it's going to be at least June, but maybe longer. This is an industry that just needs a lot of good news and goodwill. So it seems rather cruel to sort of strike down a category. And I should add for people at home that they have those 3 options because when it's only 2 people that are eligible, each nominator gets a yes/no ballot. For each of them. So they'll say, Aaron Tveit, is he worthy of a nomination? Yes or no. Chris McCarroll, is he worthy of a nomination? Yes or no. So that's why those 3 options are there. But I think and hope they're going to keep the category, and it'll just be a 2 nominee category, like the year with Glenn Close and Rebecca Luker when Glenn won for Sunset Boulevard.
I kind of agree with you, Sam, in the goodwill that even though I don't think Chris McCarroll has that many fans, although he may have been one of the better parts of The Lightning Thief, I think it would be kind of cruel in a way to take him off the ballot. Just let the voters decide. I'm pretty sure the nominators know how this is going to play out anyway. So, what harm does it do to give the kid a Tony nomination or however old he is?
I'm pretty sure
I don't think that's going to extend to other parts of The Lightning Thief where I do think they may remove it from the ballot. Especially with the other 3 musicals that are eligible.
I'm certain that Lightning Thief will not win anything because Tonys do not want the words Tony winning Lightning Thief because it was probably the worst reviewed musical of the year. And I think when we get to the category of best score, I think Lightning Thief has a good chance of being nominated, but I think they will give the award to a straight play. It could be The Rose Tattoo, it could be Slave Play or The Inheritance, which had incidental music, and they will deem that, or Christmas Carol as well.
No, Christmas Carol they deemed ineligible, actually.
Oh, is that right?
There's too many Christmas music.
Too many Christmas carols.
Well, whatever it is, I think it's not going to be Lightning Thief picking up that award, but I think that's a good chance for them to get nominated.
Yeah.
If you will bear with me for a second, I've never tried this function in StreamYard before, which is the platform we're using. I want to share a screen with you. Let me see if I can get away with this.
This is riveting.
We're shivering in anticipation.
Oh, gorgeous.
Do you see the odds from Gold
Yes.
Derby here?
Yes, but
All right. So this is the odds from Gold Derby. As they stood the day we heard, oops, Tonys aren't happening, at least for now, the way they were planned. So just for the heck of it, let's just look at this list here. This was involved about 600-700 people, and I don't even know how long we gave them, maybe only 5 or 6 days to make.
But of course, most of those shows are not eligible, Tom.
Yeah.
So no offense to your readers, but that was a list
We
based.
didn't know that at the time, of course, but
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay. Well, speak up. Tell me. We're screwing up again.
Well, of the eligible shows, I think it was going to be a showdown. I mean, Girl from the North Country is not eligible, but we all thought the season was probably going to be a showdown between that and Moulin Rouge. And for the last 800 years, the Tonys have picked for Best Musical an off-Broadway show that was arty and was kind of worked on and came to Broadway, whether it be Fun Home, Hamilton, etc. In this case, though, I really thought Moulin Rouge was going to go all the way. And now, especially without Girl from the North Country in the running, it's definitely getting the top prize. As well as supporting actor for Danny Burstein, who's had 8,000 Tony nominations.
Yeah. Finally going to be his year, I think.
Okay, we're going to go to best play again. And and of course, the whole point is to ridicule these stupid predictions based on we didn't have the facts. But
this one holds.
Here's the lineup of best plays. What observations do you have?
I think Slave Play is going to beat Inheritance. I wouldn't agree with that. I loved Inheritance, but it was greeted with a kind of it was not a hit, and the critics found it derivative. Slave Play, I think people overreacted to and overpraised it, but it was extremely topical. It showed the kind of fetishization of racism and was really bold. It was not your typical Broadway fare, let's face it. I think they're going to go.
Going back to what you said, Michael, with the musical, Slave Play had an off-Broadway production first. The Broadway production was almost identical except for one major cast change. It is, of course, racially diverse. It's provocative. It's all those things. And I think there is some backlash about the Inheritance being 7 hours. And I think most people, and I'm speaking not just for myself, but I think for a lot of voters who felt like it would have been better either as just the first part or, maybe if you'd cut it down to 4 hours, 5 hours. But it seemed really self-indulgent to a lot of people. And I think that's going to hurt its chances of winning the big award. What do you think, Sam?
I actually think the Inheritance takes it. I know we can't really use them as great barometers this year, but it did win the Drama Desk as well as a few acting awards and director. It won for Lois Smith and Paul Hilton, who are both very deserving. I think the battle is definitely between those two. But something about Slave Play, even though it was praised, it was also very divisive, and people walk out either having a very visceral negative reaction to it or really loving it, and that can kind of hurt you when it comes time for awards voting. So it feels like The Inheritance is a bit more big and grand, and was also important, even though Slave Play feels a bit more timely for right now. But I think I give a slight edge to The Inheritance, actually.
I would agree with you in some ways, Sam, but I'm going to bring up maybe the elephant in the room. I mean, this is definitely the year of celebrating diversity. Mm-hmm. We saw that at the Emmy Awards. We saw that even in a lot of the off-Broadway awards. And The Inheritance got a lot of backlash about really focusing on the white gay community. There were only a couple of Black people in the ensemble. It was basically about 3, white boys. Do you think that's going to play a factor in how people vote? Because I think it might be this year.
I do, and I also feel that if people were offended by Slave Play, which was pretty graphic, I don't think they sat there applauding The Inheritance, which had a long monologue about bathhouse anonymous sex, had a hustler character. It was not Mary Poppins Returns.
But it was also written by a Latinx writer. So it does have, it's not like it's not representing anyone.
Yes, but he also got a lot of flack for not even including his own community as one of the, and I like Matthew a lot, so that's not my point, but
well, he did have the belly
bother to make one of his main characters
He did have Belize character, and that's, as I mentioned, critics noted the derivativeness of it. I didn't find that a problem. I thought it was a homage. But there was definitely the Belize character from Angels in America. There was the banter from Boys in the Band. There was a normal heart in there. There was love, valor, compassion. It felt like almost a patchwork of gay classics.
Okay, I'm going to share screen again, and we're going to scroll down. Just, I think it's fascinating to just take a look back of where we thought this race was pre-COVID and where it is now. Here's Best Musical Revival. 3 contenders there. Company, West Side Story. West Side Story got bumped, didn't it?
Everything, yes.
Everything's gone.
And just to clarify what Sam said, because people have asked me about this, because both West Side, although they changed really what they considered the eligibility date, the reason they did that, although West Side Story and Girl from the North Country opened, normally that would be your barometer, but you have to have invited all of your Tony voters to be eligible for Tony Awards. You have 8 weeks to do that from your opening. I have it on good authority, I'm sure you do too. They did not invite all of their Tony voters within those 8 weeks. Girl from the North Country had like 8 days. West Side Story had a month, but they were waiting till later on, not knowing this was going to happen. And that's why they're not even in the running anymore.
Yeah. Well, West Side Story was also dealing with several cast members being in and out of the show. So I think they also wanted to wait to get the voters in to see them, but then that ended up hurting them in this case.
Well, it could be up for Oscars because it was really basically a movie. A lot of videos.
Well, Evo loves his videos.
And there is also a West Side Story real movie coming out eventually. Next year, probably.
If you don't mind, Tom, going back, one thing about The Inheritance that I think we'd all like to discuss is that 3 of the actors are up for Best Actor, which is by and large the most competitive category of this Tony season. There are 13 actors eligible, including some of the biggest movie stars and stage stars in the world. And whether or not, how many of them, well, some of them, but if any of them get a slot, when there are also 3 guys from The Inheritance, really is a big question for us.
Well, I thought Andrew
won the RBA, I believe, but he didn't have his co-stars as competition. So I'm kind of curious what you two think is going to really happen here.
I think Kyle Stoller from The Inheritance is going to get the nomination. He really is the lead. He doesn't have the most explosive role. He's more reactive for the most part. I thought Andrew Burnap was the most extraordinary one in the whole play. He was radioactively charismatic. Samuel H. Levine was also great as one of his 2 characters. I didn't love him in the other character. But I think Stoller is getting the nomination. I think the winner will be Tom Hiddleston for Betrayal, just based on the critical reception and the fact that he's a movie name.
I think both Stoller and Andrew Burnap will get in. It just seems that we're so far away from these plays now because the nominations are coming out, over a year in some cases from when the plays were. We're really going to see what has stuck in people's minds. Those Tony moments, the big monologues, the big explosive moments, the big solo numbers that stick in people's minds. And I just feel like Andrew Burnap has a dozen of those moments from The Inheritance. So I think he'll get a nomination. I don't know if he'll win. I think Samuel H. Levine really belongs in featured, and that might, sort of end up with him being kicked from such a competitive category. But Tom Hiddleston seems like a good shot there. I also think Ian Barford from Linda Vista, even though some people were hot and cold on his play, that, his performance was such a dominant force, he could stand a good chance of getting nominated.
I agree with you on that one. I mean, I think that was probably the bravest performance I saw of the whole year. And for that, I would certainly be very open, if I was a nominator, to nominating him. But we realize that in the discussion, we're not talking about people like Tom Sturridge, Jake Gyllenhaal, Jonathan Pryce, Brian Cox, people who in any other year would almost be like slam dunks, and who all did very worthy work, some maybe more than others. And I think there's a good chance that they'll just be left off the list, which is almost mind-boggling.
Charlie Cox, Blair Underwood, Michael Shannon, Campbell Scott. It's really a great category, despite the half of the season.
Yeah.
What category? I'm always on the wrong category on the screen here. I apologize. So
we don't see the screen.
what category are we focusing on next?
Actor and next week.
Actress in a musical, best actress in a play.
Sure.
Since we just ditched
move
all the actors.
We've given them enough time.
I think for actress, it's going to be Mary Louise Parker for The Sound Inside. People were wondering how she was going to compete against herself because there was going to be the revival of How I Learned to Drive. Her closest competitor would probably be Laura Linney. I wasn't that crazy about that one-person show. And also Joaquina Kalukango for Slave Play. But you also have Eileen Atkins, you have Audra McDonald, you have Maurice Tomei, Zoe Ashton. Another good category.
I agree with everything Michael just said. I really hope Mary Louise Parker gets it. I think that was an extraordinarily difficult role. And I think she handled it miraculously. Mary Louise has a habit of always being a little bit Mary Louise and yet somehow or another becoming whatever character she's playing. And she did that. I admit I'm also a huge fan of Laura Linney, but I double what you said, Michael. Not only did I really dislike that play, I thought it was boring as hell. Yeah. I honestly thought it was the worst performance I've ever seen Laura give, probably in any medium. And I wrote that, so she knows that I didn't like.
Well, I felt the director probably said, "Don't ever pause for breath. Just keep going. Don't lose the audience." So
but it was also kind of a boring character. She wasn't. I mean, even though it was a multi-character play, I mean, I could see how it would work as a book on the page. It didn't really work for me on the stage. And there's nothing sentimental here. I mean, both Mary Louise and Laura already have Tonys and every other award, so it's not like, oh,
Laura doesn't have a Tony.
Who?
Laura doesn't have a Tony yet.
Little Foxes, no?
No, Cynthia Nixon won for Little Foxes.
No, but Cynthia was supporting, Laura was lead. And Laura did win, I think.
No, Cynthia won.
Cynthia was supporting.
Yeah, and she won, but Laura didn't win.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I don't think anybody needs Laura Linney to have another award on her shelf.
Well, I know a lot of people are kind of predicting her because she's overdue, they think, and they want her to finally win. But I also think on top of people not loving that particular play as much as others this season, it was only open for a short amount of time. And there's just no way that all the Tony voters got in to see it. So I think, Mary Louise Parker, in what I think is the best performance she's given to date, is definitely going to take this category.
What next category should we take?
Why don't we do the acting and the musicals?
We did the actor.
We did actor and actor. Yeah, I mean, Adrienne Walker. Is it Walker or Warren? I'm so stupid.
Warren.
She is, as you said, a slam dunk. I didn't think anybody could approximate Tina Turner. She made it her own, just like Stephanie J. Black made Cher her own. And what she goes through on stage, literally getting beaten and picking herself up again, and she's triumphant, just as Tina Turner has been.
Now, one thing that's interesting is you scroll, Tom, is on this early list before we knew what was happening. And I think all of us here would have expected Jane Alexander to compete as Best Actress in a Play. And then the producers of Grand Horizons decided not to elevate her because of billing out of featured. And now they've left her in the featured actress category, where some people think, well, she's Jane Alexander. She really commanded the whole play. She is a 7-time Tony nominee. Her only win was in 1969. Think she's going to take it. But as Michael and Sam pointed out to me in a pre-chat, there's really a huge amount of support for Lois Smith in The Inheritance, even though it's, a 10-minute role?
Yeah, but what a 10 minutes.
Lois has never won.
Yeah.
No, Lois has never won.
I think, New York, Lois Smith is such a New York actor. And the fact that she doesn't have a Tony, I think people are going to fall over themselves to award her. And it's, she fully commands the stage for that time that she's on. It's an amazing scene that she gets. So I think, for someone who's been in the business for as many decades, 7 decades now that she's been in the business?
Yeah, I believe she started in the 50s.
So it's like, she's one of our premier, Sam Shepard interpreters, and she's just beloved in this community. So I think even though it's a small role and it was only in part 2, I think she still is out front for me. Jane Alexander has competition from her own show with Ashley Park, who I think was extremely funny in that play. So
yes,
she splits support.
But Priscilla Lopez stole the show. Let's face it.
She was very good too. The whole cast of Grand Horizons did
Right.
great.
If any show this year made a really good case, I think, for the Ensemble Award, which we never seem to get from the Tonys, and I pray you guys change that. I think Grand Horizons actually is probably the best example, certainly from this season, especially with Girl from the North Country not being around, that we need some sort of ensemble award to salute those kind of casts where everybody is really good and they come together as one.
What next category have I skipped over?
We haven't talked about featured actress in a musical. This is a slam dunk for Lauren Patton as the angry lesbian in Jagged Little Pill. She first does great with Hand in Pocket, just soars with it. And then she's going to get angry and do the big song, which is You Want to Know. How's she going to do it? Is she going to do it as good as Alanis? And she hits it out of the park. And
I think you're totally right about Lauren. I think the interesting thing we have to discuss is how many of her co-stars are going to join her in that category, because both Celia Rose Gooding and Catherine Gallagher,
I think they're all going to
great
get nominated.
performances.
I think all three of them.
Perhaps nominations.
Yeah, I think all three of them are locks for nominations. Lauren Patton, Celia Rose Gooding, who's LaChanze's daughter, by the way, and Catherine Gallagher are all going to get nominated. I think also Robin Herder from Moulin Rouge. And then somebody from Tina, maybe Myra Lucretia Taylor.
Actually, I think that one might only have 4 slots, won't it?
Right.
There might only be enough contenders for 4 slots with that one, because it's...
And it's true, if they wanted to make really fun history, they could just nominate LaChanze for A Christmas Carol, although that's, I guess, a play, not a musical. But we could do the whole mother-daughter thing. But
well, we had Rosemary Harris and Jennifer Ely years ago.
Yes.
And they were against each other, and Jennifer won.
And Rosemary was fine.
And they never spoke again. I'm kidding.
Do we think anybody else has? I agree. Robin Herder was fabulous, but do we really think anybody else has a chance in the supporting category at this point?
No, there aren't any other options. And
the only other option I can think of is I don't know quite how to pronounce her name, but Jalen Steele from The Lightning Thief. Even though that wasn't the most popular show, she was pretty hysterical in it. And she could take down someone like Robin Herder, who mostly has a dance role, even though we've had people like Karen Ziemba and Corinne Planchette win for dance performances in the past. But I think Robin Herder is pretty safe in there at this point.
What next category?
Well, we talked about Danny Burstein as feature actor in a musical, but we could talk about who else we think is going to join him. Who are the other losers?
I think Sean Allen Krill from Jagged Little Pill. He was the father. Tam Mutu from Moulin Rouge. Ryan Knowles from Lightning Thief.
Tam Mutu, really? Over
they have
Tina?
They have to fill the category.
Yeah,
well,
but
what about, and does anybody else think it's surprising that given their chance to actually add Daniel J. Watts to leading, because they really had the chance to do it twice, they chose not to for playing Ike Turner.
Well, he has a good chance as well for feature.
I think he's going to get into feature, but he's featured. It's not like Adrian Morin is just the show. You go in and it's
I agree with you totally.
So
I'm just talking about what I think producers
get in.
Yeah.
I think looking at the main season, I don't think he would have gotten nominated in lead, if we were looking at the full season. But featured was his better bet for a nomination. I think he could still get in. It's the biggest of the featured roles in Tina, but I think when you look at who is the lead, it's not a male and female duo leading it. It's Adrian Warren leading it.
I just said Thursday they should just say the winner is Danny Burstein. Let's face it, this is the biggest slam dunk since Julia Roberts won the Oscar. I mean, and this isn't even like, oh, he's been nominated so many times. It's a lifetime. It's a makeup. He deserves it too.
Yeah,
he plays the Joel Grey role. He's like the bisexual MC, or gay actually, and does a fantastic job. And I think Moulin Rouge is going to win all those categories like set design, costume, writing, direction of musical. It's going to be.
I was going to say, speaking of slam dunks, and we don't have to go into the design categories, but I do think Derek McLean's design for Moulin Rouge is the other true slam dunk of this season. I mean, mind you, we had the biggest budget of anybody I've ever seen. I mean, I think what did they do? Spend $26 million to create that show, but you could see every penny of it when you walked into the Hirschfeld. And I, at least as a theater goer, really appreciate that. But sometimes when you read the budgets and then you go to the show and you go, I'm sorry, where's the money? That never entered my mind in Moulin Rouge. I knew where the money was.
Yeah, it's a pretty big wow factor. But I would just want to go back to, Michael, what you said. For instead of Tam Mutu, I think Saur Nagaja, who plays Toulouse, stands a better chance as the co-star to join Danny Burstein. He just has a much more fun physical role that gets a little bit more stage time, I think.
They're about 2 feet off the ground, but yeah, I agree. Joking. Okay, well, how many people from Moulin Rouge do you think they're going to nominate in that category? Just him? And Danny?
I think just him and Danny, and then I have Daniel J. Watts from Tina. I think and hope that Ryan Knowles from The Lightning Thief will be some representation for that show, because whatever you think about the show, he was hysterical. I still think of his Paul Lynde as Hades impression, and I think Sean Allen Krill from Jagged Little Pill.
I want to give a second shout out to Ryan Knowles. I mean, obviously this is truly Danny's year, but if not, I would almost honestly be tempted to have voted for Ryan. His chameleonic way of going in and out of roles, and of course, as you pointed out, his brilliant sense of humor was really the saving grace of The Lightning Thief. Probably, other than being a Tony voter, the only reason I stayed for the second act.
Between Daniel J. Watts and Sean Allen Krill, which of those two are you two guys picking for a nomination?
Daniel. I'm picking Daniel.
Okay.
Well, I think they're both going to get in, because I don't think Tam Mutu is going to get in.
And nobody thinks Derek Klena for Jagged Little Pill has a chance. He's the son who kind of sees the rape and doesn't say anything.
Right.
He sings really well, but the role doesn't, at least to me, at this removed point from seeing it months and months and months ago, I have, again, those moments that stick out. I have moments like that from Sean Allen Krill. I remember Derek Klena singing really well and belting his face off, but I don't have that same moment that sticks out in my head that goes, wow,
Yeah, I think the problem is
so far away from it.
Sorry, Sam. I think my issue with both Derek and Sean, I think neither getting nominated, is nothing to do with them. I think it has to do with the writing of their roles. I think Diablo Cody did a brilliant job in crafting the women of Jagged Little Pill. I think for whatever reason, she really just dropped the ball. I'll leave it at that, at crafting the men of Jagged Little Pill. They were basically ciphers. I spent most of the show wondering why they were even on stage. I really think Jagged Little Pill would have been a better show if it was just about the women of that community. They were plot devices at best, and neither of those actors, to me, while being good, were good enough to overcome that. That takes maybe another level of acting to do that.
So you want to eliminate men from the theater?
Never. I just want to eliminate men from that show.
You're like the opposite of Amy Coney Barrett.
By the way,
well,
Sam,
I think in another year, frankly, Jagged Little Pill would have been the front runner. Going back to Miss Cody, I do blame it on her. That show had so many plot lines and tried to tell so many stories. It's like she was writing a mini series. Nobody told her she was writing a 2.5-hour musical.
It's like we've adopted a biracial, bisexual,
bifurcated, by everything.
But it worked, and it got a rave in the Times.
You're not going to get me started on that, are you, Michael?
No, let's not go there.
Among the shows that we lost because of this truncated Tony season, some will be back, but which ones will not ever be back in all likelihood, and they are huge losses. I mean, that could have been big Tony winners and just aren't coming because everything fell apart financially, cast, whatever. Are there examples?
I think the Martin McDonough play, Hangman, which I saw off Broadway, was absolutely brilliant. Could have easily won the Tony for Best Play.
Yeah,
we're not coming back. It was flat out, we're not coming back.
I'm not sure they're going to be able to remount Girl from the North Country. It's an expensive show. It did get great reviews. It was picking up some box office, but the fact that they haven't really brought it up makes me wonder if they're going to cut their losses such as it is. And on a personal note, as much as I really enjoyed 6, don't kill me, everybody, I'd be perfectly happy if it ended up at New World Stages when this was over, because it really, to my mind, didn't belong on the Brooks Atkinson stage.
But what can we say is definitely coming back? We know Music Man will open. They announced,
Right.
believe it or not, a February 2022 opening with previews starting in December. We know the Plaza Suite with Matthew Broderick and Sarah Jessica Parker will undoubtedly come back, don't you think?
Yes.
Company, we think, will come back with Patti LuPone and Katrina Lenk.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
Armie Hammer gave an interview saying that Tracy Letts the Minutes is going to come back. Anybody care?
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry, Sam.
What I think is interesting too is thinking about how the landscape will shift, because when things do come back, it's going to take a while to ramp up. And I just wonder how financially feasible it will be to have these bigger, more expensive musicals that target tourists who may or may not be coming back to the city
Right.
entries when things are back. For many, many years now, Broadway has, depended on these national and international tourists. And does there have to be a pivot towards a more local audience, which plays tend to get more local audiences. So there might be more plays which can be less expensive. Girl from the North Country is a bit more serious fare. It's not, on its surface, at least, a tourist show. So maybe there is hope for that to come back if they sort of shift and kind of target that local audience for a while. But I think there's going to be a shift like that, which may hurt some big touristy blockbusters for a bit.
How will finances change things? In other words, it's often been said and widely believed that the musical that has the best potential for a roadshow is going to end up winning Best Musical, because they, for a while anyway, I don't know if they still do, had the largest or one of the largest voting blocks, and that seemed to have been a kind of selfish vote. Whatever show could make the most money out there was suddenly somehow the best of the year. A lot of those pressures are gone from different areas now. How might money or lack of it, or lack of a continuation of a show because of COVID's continuance, how many of those will we have lost?
I think Sam made a really good point. I think a lot of things that are really tourist driven and also have been very long running will probably close up shop. I mean, if Cameron McIntosh wants to spend all his money to keep running Phantom, even though everybody in New York has probably seen it, that's his business. If Mark Platt is as smart as I think he is, he'll just make a Wicked movie and not worry about reopening it at the Gershwin. So I think finances will change that. I think it goes back to what Sam says. We're going to see more and more shows that have to appeal to people in New York City, or at least the tri-state area. What also makes me a little wary of that is I wonder if that will end up increasing the whole movie star bit that we've seen trend. We still all love our movie stars. You were saying, Michael, that Armie Hammer says the Minutes will come back. All right. Is Armie Hammer a big enough star to get people to pay money to go see him in the theater? Or will they rethink? I mean, nothing against Armie Hammer, who I've never met, and I think he's a good actor. But, I'm starting to think, how much starcasting are we really going to need to do to get this rolling at the beginning? Do we need to add more stars to the cast of the Minutes? And interestingly enough, while you said you think it's pretty sure it's opening, I'm pretty sure it's not, because I actually talked to Tracy Letts last year about the play. He wanted it up now because, even though I didn't see it, apparently had a lot to do with the 2020 election in its own way. It may not feel relevant after November 3rd. Hopefully lots of things won't be relevant after November 3rd. But it's also about 10 or 11 people. It's not like a 4-person play. And I think we're going to see a lot more of those. I mean, you could produce the sound inside for the rest of your life. It's 2 people. You can produce How I Learned to Drive if you really want to. It's 5 people in one set. You could probably produce that on $1 million or $2 million if you spend money. Those shows, Tom, are I think what we will see.
I think John Doyle is going to get a lot of work. I think he's going to redirect Moulin Rouge, and they're all going to be playing tambourines.
Well, maybe his assassin can transfer from off-Broadway.
Or
A lot of minimalism.
he did a lot of good work that actually could have been on Broadway.
I also think stock in plexiglass is going to go up a lot. And there are going to be a lot of one-person shows, which are the bane of my existence.
Yeah. Well, Brian, to your point about what will change, I think we're also going to see, with star casting, it might not need to be the biggest stars in the world, because I think it will come out in piecemeal. Not every show is going to be able to jumpstart and get right into it.
Right.
And so there will be fewer shows at first that open. And I think, I feel like perhaps the nonprofits, or at least some of them, may open first, because everybody is asking for money. Everybody is searching for those big donors who can offset the loss in ticket sales. A for-profit production like Wicked or, like Moulin Rouge cannot do that. They don't have that leeway. But a nonprofit company, if Lincoln Center Theater wants to go after some mega donors and say, we're going to reduce the capacity of the house to 25% and get these people to offset those costs, then they could do that. So that could be an option for what we see first.
True. And one of the things we haven't really discussed is the amount of new artistic directors or associate artistic directors of those nonprofits. Many, if not all of whom, are people of color. And I think that may change the landscape as well of what's getting produced from these nonprofits, whether it's on Broadway or off Broadway. So we might see a very different landscape that way. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, and I think there's been such a movement over the BIPOC demands for white American theater and people demanding equity and equality on stage. So I think even whether or not there is a new artistic director of these places, I think the conversation has just been moved so forcefully in that direction that the lens will have to change in terms of whose stories are highlighted.
I think a lot of these shows have seemed very foolish and continually announcing our new opening is March. No, it's April. No, it's May. No, it's June. It's like, take a chill pill, drink your hydrochloroquine, and how many times do you want to put tickets on sale that have to refund the money?
Michael, stop being bitchy. They're all just being in the spirit of the show must go on.
You just told Michael.
Dates are wrong.
Stop being bitchy.
But I also
You're
going back to your
sounding
point,
really crazy.
Sam, you're right. Maybe we won't see everything star-driven. But I think The Music Man is the ultimate example of Scott Rudin, who is the smartest man on Broadway, if not something else. He's not given up his chance to put Hugh Jackman back on Broadway no matter what. He will just...
Yeah, he already has the billboard out. He said, I don't care about Corona. The billboard's going up.
But the kid who was playing the Ron Howard role is now 40. I hear he's going to play Harold Hill, and Hugh's going to be the mayor.
We're going to wrap up here with two comments.
Character from Younger to play a very young librarian.
We're going to end up with 2 questions from our live stream here. First, and I'll put them on the screen. First is from Robert O, who asks, is Gold Derby going to have Tony nomination events in the Prediction Center? The answer is yes, once we know what they are. And I hope you give me a lot of credit, all of you watching this video and listening to the podcast, for us having put up those really bad predictions back when we thought that was the race. We have our Oscar predictions up 7 months before the Oscars are out. I mean, this is how brave we are.
You are.
And so, yes, we...
before the movies are even made.
I know, but and you know what? We tend to be 50% right in predictions. Like, it's
You
really
should stick with that because by the end of the year, you're 30%.
I know. Actually, I'm going to publish this soon in a section of Gold Derby. You can see where the collective odds, the collective percentage of winners are. In general, we get about 74% right of the Tonys, but and the Oscars and the rest that we kind of balance in there. But if you go back and have the guts to go all the way back to August during a normal Oscar cycle, let's say, which would be February, and say, what were they predicting then? Yeah, we were predicting Patricia Arquette for Boyhood, and yeah, we were predicting, and then on and on and on. And you realize, are they, and in many cases we hadn't seen them, are they really that predictable? And in many cases, of course, the answer is yes. The final comment from our video stream here is, I believe this is you, Sam, loving the Bauhaus poster on the wall. I have one similar.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Enjoying my art gallery behind me.
Yes, I purposely made this dim because I don't want anybody to come to this apartment and steal my very valuable artwork.
Your readers always zoom in on the important issues.
Yes.
I know they do. We really
Bauhaus poster.
I don't know, Sam, they managed to look at the poster and not you. Good for them.
What does that say about me?
It's what it says about them, trust me.
But I own, and I have it in the other room to it, and some of you have seen it, but I personally own the Tony Award won by Richard Barr as Producer of the Year for Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. I bought it from his estate sale. So I have this vast personal collection of historic show business awards, but that is one of my most prized possessions that I could own Richard Barr's courageous Tony win for having managed to bring that play to Broadway after it was snubbed by the Pulitzers and screwed over by so many other people and the rest of it. And the Tonys rose to the occasion and said, you know what? We're not only going to give this thing best play, we're going to give Richard Barr, who also had produced Boys in the Band. I mean, this was a heroic character in American theater. We're going to give him an award as Producer of the Year. And next time we get together, I'll put it up on screen so you can all.
Well, Tom, if you can predict who's going to die in the next few months, you could probably also predict the Lifetime Achievement Award, but that might be a little bit beyond capabilities, or maybe not.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. We will do this again once we figure out who's actually on the ballot and how it all plays out. But boy, it's exciting, and I do salute, as I'm sure you do, the Tonys for saying the show will go on. God knows what it's going to be. But on the other hand, I thought the Emmys did a pretty darn good job putting on an entertaining show. Yes, the viewership was 25% over last year, but that follows the trend of the Oscars and all the major award shows, which tend to be down 50% over the past 10 years. And that's just the state of this awards game. And it's not actually that fewer people are even seeing it. Or what they're doing with these award shows is they're chopping them up into moments, sharing them on YouTube and Instagram and the rest of it, and people are getting to see that way. And you know what? That's probably a good thing. On that final note, thank you, gentlemen. We'll reconvene soon. Thank you very much for your thoughts.
Thank you, Tom, Sam, Michael.
Bye, guys.
Bye, all.